Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're off on a super fast virtual expedition across India. We're talking about a country so packed with different landscapes that it's basically a mini continent. We're going to fly from icy mountain peaks to scorching hot deserts, all in just a few minutes. You ready? Let's jump right in. So let's start our journey with a view from way, way up. Back in 1984, India's very first astronaut, Rakesh Sharma, was asked that exact question. And his answer was just so poetic and powerful, better than the whole world. I mean, that really sets the stage for the bird's eye view we're about to take, doesn't it? Which, of course, makes you wonder, how can a single country have such a mind-boggling variety of landscapes? You've got frozen mountains, tropical islands. How does it all fit into one place? Well, we're about to find out. All right, we're kicking things off in the far north. At this massive natural barrier you can actually see from space, the mighty Himalayan mountain range. And this isn't just a bunch of mountains, you guys. It's a total game changer for the entire subcontinent. You know, to really get the Himalayas, we've got to travel back in time. And I mean way back. Millions of years ago, the chunk of land we call India was actually part of a supercontinent called Gondwana, way down in the southern hemisphere, hanging out next to Africa. So India breaks off and starts drifting north. And it was basically on a collision course. Around 50 million years ago, bam, it slams right into the huge Eurasian continent. Here's a cool way to picture it. Imagine pushing a carpet from one end. See how it wrinkles up and folds? That is exactly what happened to the Earth's crust, creating the tallest mountains in the entire world. And get this is the mind-blowing part. That collision is still happening right now. India is still pushing into Asia at about 5 centimeters a year. Now, that's slower than your hair grows, but it means the Himalayas are still getting a tiny bit taller every single year. Wild, right? You know, the name itself tells a story. Himalaya actually comes from two Sanskrit words, Hima, which means snow, and Alaya, which means abode or home. So it literally translates to the abode of snow. Pretty perfect name for these giant snow-covered peaks, don't you think? So the Himalayas aren't just one big wall. Think of them as 3 parallel ranges, kind of like layers. First, you've got the towering Himadri. That's where you find the really big guys like Mount Everest. Then, a bit lower, you have the gentler Himachal Range, home to all those famous beautiful hill stations. And finally, there are the Shivalik foothills, this lush area teeming with forest and wildlife. Okay, now from a little surprise. India doesn't just have one desert, it actually has 2, and they are polar opposites. Way up in the Himalayas, you've got Ladakh, a cold desert. It's rocky, it's at a super high altitude, and winter temperatures can drop below minus 30 degrees Celsius. That is a whole world away from the famous Thar Desert, which is all about scorching heat and golden sand. Now, as we fly south from those mountains, the landscape does a complete 180. The jagged peaks just melt away into this enormous, flat, and super green expanse. This is the Gangetic Plains, what you could call India's agricultural heartland. So, where did all this amazing farmland come from? Well, it's basically a gift from the Himalayas. As the snow and glaciers up there melt, they form these huge, powerful rivers, like the Ganga. For thousands and thousands of years, these rivers have been flowing down, carrying all this rich soil and minerals, and spreading it all over the plains. That's what created one of the most fertile regions on the entire planet. And what's amazing is that right next to these lush, green plains, you find the golden sand dunes of the Thar Desert. I mean, just look at that contrast. One region is defined by all this river water, which supports a really dense population, and its next-door neighbor is shaped by a lack of water, which leads to a totally different, really adapted way of life. And this is a great example of how incredibly resourceful people can be. Because water is so precious in the Thar, women there traditionally used sand to scrub their pots and pans clean. Then they just use a tiny splash of water for a final rinse. Every single drop counts. Okay, time to continue our expedition south, right over the heart of India, to this huge elevated chunk of land called the Peninsular Plateau. And this thing is ancient. We're talking one of the oldest pieces of land on the entire planet. So what exactly is a plateau? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like a giant tabletop. It's a huge area of high ground that's mostly flat on top, rising up from the land around it.
And why do we call it the Peninsular Plateau? Simple. It's because this part of India is a peninsula. You know, a piece of land that's surrounded by water on three sides. You've got the Arabian Sea on the west, the Bay of Bengal on the east, and the Indian Ocean down south.
Now, this whole region is an absolute powerhouse. It's bordered by two long mountain ranges called the Ghats. It's the starting point for major South Indian rivers, and it's incredibly rich in minerals and dense forests. This makes it super important, both economically and culturally. All right, for the final leg of our journey, we are heading to the edges of India, to its amazing coastlines, its faraway islands, and the super rainy, lush hills of the northeast. First up, the coast. Get this. If you were to walk the entire length of India's coastline, including all its islands, you would travel over 7,500 kilometers. That is a massive stretch of beaches, cliffs, and busy ports. Now, out in the ocean, India has two main groups of islands, and they couldn't be more different. Over in the Arabian Sea, you have Lakshadweep, a little group of 36 islands made entirely of coral. But then, way over in the Bay of Bengal, you've got the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, a chain of over 500 islands that were actually formed by volcanoes. That's right, volcanoes. I know, most people don't really think volcanoes when they think of India, but Barren Island in the Andamans is home to the country's one and only active volcano. It still erupts every now and then, which is pretty amazing. And for our final stop, we're landing in Meghalaya in northeast India, which is one of the wettest places on Earth. And the people there do something absolutely incredible. Instead of building bridges, they grow them. They actually guide the roots of living trees across rivers, and over many years, they weave them into these strong, living bridges that just get stronger over time. It's this perfect blend of human cleverness and the power of nature. And with that, our whirlwind tour comes to a close. Wow, what a trip, huh? We've gone from the highest mountains on Earth all the way to the deep blue sea, and we've really only scratched the surface of India's incredible geography. So this leaves us with one final, really interesting puzzle to think about. We've seen all these mountains and deserts and plains that could have easily acted as barriers, dividing people. And yet, they're all part of one huge nation. So how has this unbelievable geography not only shaped India, but maybe, just maybe, helped bring it all together? Something to think about. Thanks for joining the expedition.